Welcome to Monday meeting.
Monday! Buenas.
Still waking up here.
Yeah.
Thanks for starting your day the KUAM way. This show gives you a glimpse into how we put together our newscasts and what we're working on for the week. And currently right now, I understand that Chief Daniel Stone, Acting Fire Chief, is having his confirmation hearing down at the Guam Legislature. And Joan, you actually had interviewed Chief Stone.
Yeah, about a couple of weeks ago, it was regarding his feedback on the transition report that was released by the administration and how he's working with them in regards to, if there is going to be a shortfall for fiscal year 2019 for the fire department. And so it's trying to balance without having to, I guess, sacrifice hours for the firefighters. So one of the things that they wanted to visit was possibly doing EMT standalone positions to fill the medics so the firefighters could be back on the trucks. About 80% of the calls that they get into E911 are medical, so they're looking at finding funding for that and working along with the administration regarding that.
Also going on today, this morning actually, is Nick Delgado. He's up at the Department of Youth Affairs where the governor, Lourdes Leon Guerrero, is conducting a tour. It's one of the many tours she's been doing since she was sworn into office.
That's right.
We see to have either educational issues, mental health issues, and so at least when they come through these gates, we do a screen, a Macy screen, and we refer them if they need further assistance.
Hey guys, how's the day? Good morning. Yeah, that was a look inside the meeting happening this morning here at the Department of Youth Affairs with the Governor Leon Guerrero, Lieutenant Governor Joshua Tenorio, the first official meeting that they're having with department heads here at the DYA facility. One of the topics of discussion you've seen probably those shows, Scared Straight, those boot camps, trying to show the youth what they might end up if they find themselves in trouble. Where there's some programs not to that extent, but some programs more so of a tour that DYA leaders are hoping to implement so that some of the youth here on the island can take a look at what it's like, the conditions here, just so that they can stay active and more involved and positive in the community. So that's some of the discussion happening here. Following the talks happening behind in the office here, it's definitely an open meeting and open discussion as they kick the week off here for the island leaders and for the leaders here at DYA. They're going to obviously take a tour of the facility, something that the administration has been doing at the different GovWAM agencies since taking the helm here. So we'll follow up with that. We'll bring you the story tonight on KUAM News as well as on all our social media platforms. We look forward to see what the rest of you have, and yeah, tune in tonight.
I don't know what you guys make of in the middle of March and it's the first time they're checking in with DYA. Thought that was kind of an interesting little side note.
Well, she's been off island, so she's continuing on with all those tours that she's doing for every single Guam agency.
Right.
So that's not the only thing going on today.
Really, what else is going on, Bree?
A lot of stuff's going on. I'm going to ask you about DOC. Not DOC, but there's a hearing for weed. But
yeah, there's a couple of bills. Actually, the bills are pretty short, about a couple of pages each or less, but actually pretty consequential. One of them was introduced by Clint Rigel. You mentioned the weed
marijuana
bill. This one, and let me just read some of the changes that were. It would reduce the period for ownership, actually the residency requirement, from 3 years to 1 year for ownership, and it would also, and the requirement shall not apply to any person or associations of persons applying for a license to laboratory test cannabis. So it waives the residency requirements for ownership of cannabis testing facilities.
Right, and I think that's because no one locally had the money. I know, and I was at the hearing last week. Matt Geiger had said that he's got some investors, so I'm figuring he's going to be like the point guy. And it's just surprising because when we started talking about medicinal marijuana and now recreational marijuana, at the beginning of these conversations, everyone's like, "Oh, there's labs are going to come. There's just so much money to be made," and we haven't heard. I mean, this is the first. I mean, he represents the first person to pick up a license for this lab.
Yeah, and as I understand it, of course, it's been out there for quite a while. No one has really shown an interest in it because it is very expensive to run a lab, And then the return is also very difficult because we have such a small market.
Right.
By opening it up, like I think we've discussed this before, by opening it up to recreational marijuana, you bring in tourists who might also be interested in availing of the,
Right.
that expands the market so that they can, when they do their due diligence and they analyze the profitability of it, then that becomes more
It's
viable.
big money. I mean, and Matt Geiger testified that, you know, they were looking at making back their investment within a few years and then, you know, doubling and tripling. And he had some timeline where it was like, oh, in 15 years, we're going to make this much. And so, I mean, that hearing on the adult use cannabis, it was pretty eventful. Pretty
think?
eventful, yeah. So the morning session, it seemed like most of the opponents came out. You had, you know, Paul Zerzan, you know, kicked it off by getting kicked out of the hearing, and there was another guy, Mr. Camacho. There was one gentleman who had shown the panel of senators a picture of his 5-month-old, I think it was his granddaughter. He basically went up to the senators and was like, you know, do you want her, you know, I don't want, you know, adult weed to affect her. And so in the afternoon, that's when all the stoners came up. I mean, you had Howard Hemsing, you know, famously now was offering, you know, he said he had bags of marijuana. I mean, nobody even checked if it was real marijuana, and now I heard he's being investigated for that. So, you know, I'm not sure how much going back to the drawing board, Senator Rogel is going to do, but I think testimony was probably slightly more in favor of it.
Okay. And I think there were probably people who wanted to testify in support but probably didn't want to do so in such a public fashion. So
Right.
it'd be interesting to see
Who submitted testimony?
yeah, written testimony.
Right, and then there was a doctor that came out, and there was one guy who testified. I think his name was Michael Santos, and wearing shades and a hat, and he kind of cracked me up because he was like, you know, people talk about driving on marijuana and it's dangerous, and it's not dangerous. It actually makes you focus more. So there was just some of the testimony. It was just really funny to me. You know what I mean? You had people who looked like they were on marijuana. You know, I don't know.
And so hopefully tomorrow for a group chat, we'll be able to
Hopefully.
discuss the issue even further. But there's also another hearing today regarding GWA, I believe, or rates.
Senator Teitigui, Senator Rogel, and Speaker Barnes are also the co-sponsors of another short but I think pretty consequential bill, and it has to do with developing a residential rate schedule for multifamily units as opposed to, you know, your single-family home rates. But if you live in a condo with, say, many units, should that be, you know, comparable or the same as your residential, your house? And so this is going to take a look at it. I think this has come up before. Developing a residential rate separate and apart for multi-family dwellings, condominium units, apartment units, and where do you draw the line in terms of, because there's also, and I think probably John Beneventi will be there and explain why there's disparity in the different rates. And for example, in condominiums, you have to have other facilities within the compound that require draw on the power and so.
Right.
I don't know a whole lot about it, but I'm sure Mr. Beneventi, who is an expert, will be able to explain it to satisfaction. But that's another bill that's coming up for discussion this morning.
With that public
Or this
hearing
afternoon, rather.
Yeah, 1 o'clock.
Legislature.
So what are you working on, Chris?
Top secret stuff that I don't want the other media to see on this Monday meeting thing.
Too bad this is not on Tuesday, because we could be up at the University of Guam enjoying the Charter Day festivities.
Right,
That's always such a fun event, yeah.
Well,
So-
speaking of the University of Guam, today kicks off their Chamorro language competition. So I think we're going to be stopping by there today. It's today and tomorrow. And
Nice.
if you don't have anything to do, make sure to stop by there as well.
I did get a note from a couple sources in our nation's capital talking about our delegate, Michael Sinikolas, is not co-sponsoring the Equality Act, which is, you know, this is something the Democrats have been trying to get through. This is an act that kind of reinforces anti-discriminatory clauses for, you know, members of the LGBTQ community, and He's one of just 3 Democrats who hasn't co-sponsored it. Now, I know they're trying to introduce it on Wednesday, so I'm not sure if, for whatever reason, he's waiting till the last minute. But I did kind of reach out to some members of those communities, and also hearing from the Human Rights Coalition in D.C. that, you know, they've been trying to open a dialogue with the delegate and haven't been getting a response. So, you know, I mean, it could be something, it could be nothing, but that's something that, you know, we'll definitely look at in the next couple
Speaking of
days.
the delegate, is this office open this week?
18th, March 18th.
So that would probably be Monday, I think.
Yeah.
Next Monday.
And then also from a Capitol Hill source, I believe he may be the last freshman who doesn't have a district office.
Can't wait to get a look inside. Joan, The Good Life. We've got a new episode of The Good Life rolling out today.
Yes, so from February 28th to March 9th was the Tumonbe Music Festival. And, you know, there are over 100 students that took part in it. And so we, you know, this month, the episode of The Good Life focuses on, you know, showcasing some of those performances. And I mean, we have some talented musicians on island. So
It's also Women's
Women's History Month.
and we got a lot of engagement with the first 2 that we did, I think.
Yes,
I
yes.
think,
So every Wednesday and Friday we have a series called Her Story. You know, where we,
Herstory.
or how Chris says it, and it just features some of the awesome women that are in the community, whether it be, you know, business or in the politics and everything. So we've, you know, of course we started things off with our Makahaga, the Youngaro, and Hyatt General Manager Sophia Chu. So this week we have another 2 more awesome women.
I was able to interview Auntie Hope Cristobal, and you know, Joan always teases me about having interviews that are really long, but I think I kind of got her reminiscing because she was just going on about.
I don't think tease is the right word.
Yeah. She was talking about a lot of the activism work that she did as one of the founding members of the Organization for People's Indigenous Rights, and I mean, going back to the 70s, and talking with her about how she's kind of passed that torch on to the younger generation now, and how she feels about that, and just what it was like to be an activist at that time, and not just to be an activist, but to be you know, a woman activist.
All right. Well, I guess that's going to do it for
That's it, Pansett.
our meeting for today. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks for starting your day the KUAM way. Bye.
All right, Facebook.